Hello and welcome to the Joseph Early Show. We have some very interesting information for you. Now, some of you might even chuckle, some will giggle, snort, and some other things, but this is rich. So listen, let me assure you that President Trump is going to win this. He is. He's going to win this. And when all these ballots get counted and all the fraud is discovered. Now, if you watched this afternoon's tape, you'll know some of the things that we've covered. But this afternoon's tape was really good, but tonight's tape might be even a little bit better. Now, we also have a ex-politician that's a lawyer. Of course, his hands are dirty. And so we'll get in and show you that video. Guys, matter of fact, let's go ahead and roll that tape right now.
Hello, it's Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with you with Rudy's Common Sense on an extraordinary period of time. This election, of course, has been the most unusual in American history. Now it's going to be the most unusual election count in American history, probably challenging Bush v. Gore. Let me tell you my experience. I've been here in Washington, D.C. for a number of days to deal first with the aftermath, the last couple of days of the election, and now with the legal matters that hang over. When I went to bed, which was very, very late on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, I'd say around 3 or 4 in the morning, I was quite confident that President Trump had won re-election based on every criteria that I knew from prior elections, which go back to really, with any experience, John Kennedy's. And before that, as a child, I remember Eisenhower in 52. So I'm not a baby. And he had won. And I'm going to tell you how he had won and what they hadn't called. They hadn't called Pennsylvania for him as of that time, and it was only about 81 or 82% of the vote was out at that time. I'm sorry, 65% of the vote was out, and he was ahead by 15%. Impossible to win fairly, honestly, that way, when you consider that there were votes out about evenly.
Okay, what in the world is on his hands? You know, I noticed it on the thumb, then the index finger, and then when he did that, and I see the ink that's all over his hands, I'm thinking, come on, man. That is so distractive. I'm trying to listen to what he's saying. Anyway, sorry about that earlier. We've had so many politician lawyers, attorneys with dirty hands. I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, sorry, let's get back into the tape. Guys, roll that film.
In Philadelphia, and then in the rest of the state or the parts of the state that were pro-Trump. In order to make that up, Biden would have to get about 70% of the vote. The only way he'd get 70% of the vote is if the vote were all from Philadelphia, where he was running about there or better. Other parts of the state, he was running almost the opposite. Trump was running up margins of 65 to 85%. So if this were a fair process, even by Fox, that would have been called for him, particularly since they called Virginia very early on with a very small sample of the vote. With Trump actually ahead in Virginia, they called it for Biden. Only Fox did.
Oh, you mean fair and balance called it for Biden? Didn't call it for Trump? You know, that's Fox News. I've told you over and over again that Fox is no different than CNN or MSLSD or NBC or any of them. Mainstream media guys, they are lying like a rug. Along with the pollsters, Now, I've already indicated I'm going to make a lot of fun of these pollsters because they did this nonsense in 2016 that Hillary Clinton was ahead and on and on and on. And then at the last minute, Trump took it. But the polls were wrong. They were all wrong. Operation Mockingbird this time has been in full effect, and it's been a full court press on President Trump with Facebook, Twitter, all the social media, as well as the other media. And they have illegally the media should be charged for racketeering with the other guys. Now, as you know from the video today, Trump has access to all that. The video, the audio, the whole thing. Everybody colluding to get together. Massive RICO case. All right, let's go back to that tape.
CNN still hasn't called Virginia for Biden. Michigan, he was ahead by 8% with 64% of the vote cast. Again, the votes out were in both, let's call them Trump and Biden parts of the state. If you're going to call Virginia as early as they did, and you're going to call Arizona as early as you did, with considerably less of a margin for Trump to make up, to turn those states around, than existed in Michigan for Biden, then you're being unfair. You're not applying the same standard to the same to both candidates. So those are two states that should have been called for him. Georgia and North Carolina certainly should have been called for him. They were down to about 88% of the vote cast, and there was a 3.5%. I'm sorry, Georgia was 78% of the vote cast, 3.5% lead in Georgia, and a 3.5% lead in North Carolina at 80% of the vote. Those would have been just naturals. If you had called all those states that should have been called, he'd have been just a little shy of the 270 needed to win. And then you had him ahead in Wisconsin by 5% with 65% of the vote to go, which looked like it was going to go his way, particularly given the votes that were left. And you might not want to call that unless you're very, very pro-Trump. But you'd go to bed feeling, hey, we got this election won, particularly since Nevada hadn't even really started counting yet. And by every token, it looked like he was either going to win Nevada or it was going to be like that. And it turns out it is like that. First thing about this election is pollsters should all retire. What's the use of having polls? I mean, this would be like, I know the weatherman is wrong, but this is like being the weatherman is wrong all the time. Every time he says rain, it's sunny. Every time he says sunny, it rains. This has been true now. I mean, according to the pollsters, Al Gore would be president. John Kerry was ahead on election night. I was there 8 o'clock at night at the Fox studios when the Fox pollster told the executives of Fox that John Kerry was the next president. So John Kerry would have been the president. Hillary Clinton would have been the president. Why do we take them? I mean, they're so far off. This was supposed to be a landslide for Biden. Well, it certainly isn't a landslide, and he's not going to win. They were supposed to take the Senate. They did not take the Senate. They were supposed to make gains in the House. They did not make gains in the House. And why are the mistakes always why are the mistakes always mistakes where they go too pro-Democrat in order to suppress our vote, discourage our vote? And just think of what Fox did to us by calling Virginia early when CNN didn't. How many votes did they suppress in Virginia when people could still vote in other parts of the country? So, I'm sorry, I don't think you can vote anymore in Virginia, but in other parts of the country, there's still a lot of voting left. And both the Virginia call and the Arizona call in particular were very, very damaging because Arizona was made into a big deal Biden takes Trump state, says Fox. CNN says too close to call. I mean, just think of that. The impact of Fox calling Arizona for Biden when CNN didn't, and then making a big deal out of it. I think they were playing trumpets. Biden makes first breakthrough a campaign. Biden wins Trump state. Maybe. Maybe not. Nobody else called it. Don't tell me that didn't have an impact on the campaign. Of course it did. It had an impact on the psychology of this, which push all the networks then to kind of leave out the calling the Trump states. Let's call Biden. Let's get him to 270. Let's get him to 270. The reality of where we stand now is Pennsylvania is Trump's. If, and for any reason, that vote total changes, it has to be a fraud. Plus, there is so much evidence of fraud already in Pennsylvania. As I sit here right now, there's only about 8% of the vote to be counted. Trump's ahead by a clear 135,000. He may very well get 120,000 votes disqualified because his observers were not allowed for 21 hours to observe the mail ballots. In that case, a district court judge a lower court judge in Philadelphia, of course, ruled with the Democrats. She was a Democratic hack. But the appellate court now has reversed it and ruled with the Republicans that, in fact, there was deprival of the right of observation with regard to those 135,000 ballots, which now have to be cast aside and either taken out of the equation or re-examined. So now we have a lead of 135, and we have 135 to 140 ballots that have been taken out of the process. So not that Pennsylvania won't try to continue to cheat. Governor Wolf will cheat. But we're on top of him. We're in state court. We're in federal court, and we'll be in every court possible because we're not going to let the Democrats steal Pennsylvania. Just not going to happen. Now we go to the other states that are still out there. Georgia, he has won. It's just a matter of calling it. Just a matter of calling it. I know it's only 0.4%, but ladies and gentlemen, Milwaukee was only 0.3%. Or Michigan. Excuse me, Wisconsin. If Wisconsin can only be 0.3% and called, why isn't Georgia called at 0.4%? The only difference is Georgia, they figure there's more of a capacity for the Democrats to cheat a little, particularly the machine in Atlanta, which is not so nice. He's won Georgia, ladies and gentlemen. If they try to fool around with it, we'll get it back legally. Believe me. North Carolina, I have no idea why they don't call North Carolina. He's ahead by 2.3%. There's 5% of the vote cast. I did the arithmetic quickly. There are 250,000 additional votes to count. For Biden to win, he'd have to win 210 of the 250,000. And they're not calling it. Tell me they're not corrupt.
Just in, President Trump vows to use every aspect of law to fight against corrupt Democratic machine trying to steal election. President Trump on Friday released a statement vowing to fight for the American people. Quote, "We believe the American people deserve to have full transparency into all vote counting and election certification, and that this is no longer about a single election. This is about the integrity of our entire election process," Trump said. "From the beginning, we have said that all legal ballots must be counted and all illegal ballots should not be counted. Yet we have met resistance to this basic principle by Democrats at every turn. We will pursue this process through every aspect of law to guarantee that the American people have confidence in our government," end quote. "I will never give up fighting for you and our nation," end quote. Well, there you have it, boys and girls. That is President Trump. And, if I wanted somebody in my corner to fight for me, I'd pick Trump all day long over Biden because Biden would forget to come out of the corner, probably. But Anyway, let's go on, see what else we have here. As the To Catch a Thief series, man, what a great name, To Catch a Thief series, continues. Huge exclusive. Keep the faith. President Trump will win the election based on the Constitution, per retired Intel operative Tony Shaffer. Tony is a retired Intel operative and current president of London Center for Policy Research and a member of President Trump's 2020 advisory board. He believes the president won the election and has a great case in the court to prove it. Well, I totally agree with that. He does have a great case, and he is going to win this thing. You watch and see. The Democratic Party has cheated, lied, and done everything they can possibly do because there's so much on the line. You say, well, what's on the line? Well, when President Trump is declared the winner, then Joe Biden and all of his thieving minions, and that includes Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the whole cast of characters, they all go down. And President Trump has set this net for these guys and has them on tape. It's all recorded, all video, everything else about how they've conspired to steal the election. Anyway, back to this article. Shaffer created a fire on Twitter yesterday when he questioned whether the president may have marked all the ballots in this year's election, which would indicate if a ballot counted was legitimate or not. Shaffer tweeted this: a hypothetical question for all Democrats trolls following my feed, ellipsis. What if DHS anticipated DNC counting fraud? What if they tagged each legitimate ballot? What would happen if DHS does an audit of all the counted ballots and finds bags without the tag? What happens then? Oh, it gets better. Next, Shaffer made some comments and asked another question. It's done in known contract sites, ellipsis. You do understand law enforcement ask for cooperation all the time from companies, right? A third tweet from Shaffer indicated that there are numerous ways to mark documents without the markings clearly identifiable. Oh, there is more than that now. People don't understand how light works, ellipsis, and what they don't see can be seen in infrared and ultraviolet, ellipsis. We had a whole block of instructions at the farm on secret writing, ellipsis. It is amazing. This caused an uproar on Twitter, and liberals freaked out, thinking they may have gotten caught in their attempts to steal this year's election. Break from the text. Ladies and gentlemen, they have been caught. They are so caught. They tried to steal this election, and they got caught. Back to the text. Shaffer has a credible record and one of the first to confirm that President Trump was being spied on back in March of 2017. Now, if you remember in the last video, we talked about 2017. I think he knew in 2016 what happened. Back to the text. We covered this in prior posts. Let's see what this is. Based on his impressive record, we were curious about Shaffer's tweet, and so we contacted him, and he shared the following comments. The tweets were questions for people to think about. We know that the same people who were behind the Russia collusion scam were still around, and to think that they were going to allow the president to freely win the 2020 election was foolish. Of course, there would be a major effort to prevent President Trump from winning. break from the text. Don't you think President Trump knew this? You don't think they haven't been working on this from day one? Well, of course they have. The rats are caught. They're caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar, and they don't even know it. 2, certainly the president's team prepared for this year's election and would have considered possible voter fraud on a large scale due to current environment in the U.S. 3, Tony posed his questions and the left went crazy. And based on this, they must know what they are doing is unjust. 4, the courts will decide this election and the Constitution is on the side of the president. Any illegal votes should not be counted, and when this is addressed, the president will win the election. 5, there are many actions by the Democrats that indicate they are attempting to steal the election. We have reported numerous stories on this subject since the election. Now that's we, the Gateway Pundit. 6, the Constitution requires that all valid ballots be received and counted on the first Tuesday in November. Any effort to drag the election out after this date are likely not legitimate. 7, efforts by the Democrats to prevent oversight and transparency are likely due to corruption. Why has the Biden campaign not urged for transparency during this process? Where there is no transparency, there is something being hidden. 8, how come Texas and Florida can be transparent and provide results on election eve, but other states could not and even stopped counting? Number 9, historically, Iowa and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania and Ohio and Florida and Georgia vote very similarly. What happened this year to break this connection? Why were things changed late at night in some of these states? Number 10, if there's an ongoing investigation into any of this, would the president comment on it, or would it be more proper not to? Finally, Schaefer pointed out that the Democrats again put us in a position we have never been in before. The president's son tweeted yesterday something similar. When America sees everything we are uncovering, they will be disgusted, and even the media won't be able to pretend voter fraud isn't real. Ending this crap once and for all will be fundamental to preserving our republic and faith in democracy. Yeah, well, I don't know about democracy. Finally, in this article, let's pray for the country and that the demons trying to destroy it are caught and justice is served. Well, amen. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Great article, as usual, by the Gateway Pundit. Well, guys, there's so much information to cover. We've gone to 2-a-day videos just in order to grab and to keep up with this information. You know, I didn't even get a chance to read my other article that I really wanted to get in today with the article of 1917, but I didn't get a chance to do that, so maybe I'll do a recording over the weekend. I'm not sure, because we're doing this 5 days a week, bringing you great information that you can grab onto, share with your friends and family, and stay informed of what's really going on. I'm Joseph Farley, and we'll see you back here Monday for some more great information. Good night, all. Because all the big tech social media giants are not allowing us to record information and get it back out to you guys, I had to do this the old school way. So, just a little treat for a good Friday night. Hope you enjoy it.
Well, let me say this. I hope the news media learn from this. It's been you carrying the false narrative of these false polls coming from these liberal universities. That's right. And you and these posters have done more to interfere with this election than Russia and China combined. You have suppressed and depressed the voters of this country. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to fight. Last night I made a comment. We don't fight with violence. I'm not for violence. But we're going to fight to our last breath for our constitutional rights. To our last breath. And we'll take on Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Fair Fight, Stacey Abrams, all of them, because we're going to do what's right for the people of Georgia.